YouTube. This is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. This is the Solar Flash Update for June 23rd, 2023. And today I want to talk about what is the most important lesson of Ascension. We could also entitle this, what is the most important tool for Ascension? Sorry, we'll get to that later. Hi, welcome back. So, as you know, it is my belief, although I am not attached to this. Let me be clear. I am not attached to anything that I am currently believing. I'm more than happy to be wrong about anything. As you've seen in the past, whenever I'm wrong, I make videos where I say I'm wrong. And that's because I'm more interested in knowing the truth than I am about being perceived in a certain way. I'm still interested in being perceived in a certain way, but I'd much rather know the truth than have your perception be favorable of me. So I want to talk about that. Now, as you know, it is my belief that we are in the midst of an evolutionary transformation here on planet Earth. I believe this is an event that is unavoidable and has already started, and there is no reverse on this. We're already in it. I believe it's possible that how fast and what kind of transformation we experience is something we may have some level of influence over. But other than that, this is something that is not going to go away. So I want you to think about something. I want you to put this into your assumption. Assumption is a belief that you have at the base of your essence. And most of our assumptions are unconscious, but we can introduce conscious ones that you can choose to accept or reject. You can even, I believe, choose to accept an assumption that is in direct conflict with an unconscious assumption. You may have to work to replace the conscious assumption with the unconscious assumption, and that can only be done through repeated, disciplined actions. And we will talk about that. The assumption that I want to introduce to you is that nothing is outside of you. Absolutely nothing is outside of you. That means this ascension event is not something that is outside of us, and yet it is something that is outside of us. So deal with that for a little bit. So actually, I'm going to turn on the air conditioning for a second, but while I'm doing that, I would like for you to just meditate for a moment about literally everything. That means the highest gods, the lowest demons. Everything that exists inside of you. All right. Let's talk about what I just said earlier, which is that you have unconscious assumptions. This is incredibly important. It is extremely unlikely, and in some cases, I believe, downright impossible, for anybody to transform if they don't become aware and or don't seek to change their assumptions about themselves. So there's something that goes on with the body that you may not be aware of. So we are a community of beings. Each individual human walking around is a community of beings. You're not just one being. You have a soul, the middle of your chest. That is supposed to be the ruler of this community, the soul, the king. That's why the sun is associated with royalty, and the sun in astrology is the king. So the king should be the identity and should be the one that makes all the decisions about what happens in this community. So you have the soul, that's the most important. You have a higher self. Higher self is a part of you, according to some shamanic understandings. The higher self is a being that sits right here and advises you. And this is the part of you that is getting information from higher sources all the time. And then you have a lower self. I'm pointing to my navel center right now. You can't see that. So the lower self is your subconscious mind and your unconscious mind. These are two different things, by the way. Many people use the word subconscious and they really mean unconscious. Drives me crazy. But those exist in your lower self. So you are these three beings, and this is found in multiple traditions around the world. Again, if you're new to my channel, please put some effort into educating yourself about what I teach. The best way to do that is to read my books. I have books where I talk about the three selves. I have books where I talk about how you can find this in any real spiritual path, Vedic, Taoist, pre-Christian Norse. This stuff should be something you already know. But I know a huge amount of you are coming onto this channel. I know there's a lot of new people that are showing up, and I'm very grateful for that. But please do not make the mistake that this is a normal YouTube channel, like just somebody who does a podcast every week with a different guest, and we just go from one idea to another like a bouncing ball. I believe that it is my responsibility to make sure to educate you. I am here to educate you. If you don't need education, good for you. Then you don't need to be here. You're welcome, but you don't need to be here. But if you need education, then you need to study the materials. So please get your hands on my books. You can go on to Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. You can type in my name, Michael Denny or Michael William Denny, and you'll see them. Specifically, I'm talking about now some of my older books that talk about these three selves that are found in all these different religions. So these are the first three. These would be like the council of three. Let's say your body is a universe. You have the council of three. It would be your higher self, your middle self, and your lower self. And of the three of those, the middle self is king. The higher one is the advisor, and the lower one would be the general or the warrior. Now, despite that, you have more. You have the 5 elements. These are like 5 ministers that keep things in balance within your community. And then you have the chakras. You have the 7 major chakras. There's probably more than that, and those do their own thing. And you have all the way down to each individual cell. Everything in your body has consciousness. You have a human brain, which is not your mind, by the way. Your mind is not connected. It is not something that is part of your physical body. But we have a problem if your physical mind, your physical brain, and your physical nervous system, if they are running the show, then you are an animal. So understand, again, here's another assumption for you to take in. You can choose to believe this or not, but here's the thing about assumptions. I said a long time ago, I don't care if something is true or not. I only care if it makes my life better. And so assumptions are like that. As it turns out, we live in a universe where multiple things can be true at the same time. So, there isn't a one's true and one's false. That's a dualistic way of looking at things, and I encourage you to get rid of that. Having said that, there is truth. There are base truths that are you know, if I want to choose what is true and what is false, I'm going to choose what makes me happy. Because there are truths you can hang on to that will kill you. They'll make you sick and they will kill you. In fact, there's a lot of schools of thought. Joe Dispenza is somebody I'm listening to, and I hear that in what he says, that, you know, your illness is a direct result of your beliefs bouncing back and forth inside of your body. So if you choose to let your body be the leader of who you are, which includes your brain, then you're an animal. You're not a human being. You're an animal. And according to the Hopis, we are leaving the age of the animal and entering into the age of the human being, which means that human beings up to this point have been functioning as animals. And what do animals do? Animals look to eat, animals look to procreate, animals respond to danger, animals look to defend their territory, you know, fight or flight. You either want to eat it, procreate with it, destroy it, run it off, control it. You know, this is the way of the animal. And so if you respond to your external reality, you are an animal and you will die. Eventually this state will bring on death and you will die. So we will obviously want to go beyond that. There are plenty of traditions that talk about leaving the physical body and achieving enlightenment. There are even traditions that say you can stay within your body. By the way, in case you want to know the difference between like a Buddhist enlightenment and a Taoist enlightenment, the Taoist mystics actually seek to keep their same body. They don't want to leave that body and reincarnate. They want to perfect the one that they have, which is why in Taoism, the enlightened beings are called the perfected immortals. Babaji in the Kriya Yoga tradition, was said to be thousands of years old in the same body. So he would have been a perfected immortal. So assuming that that's true, that means that you can decide to only be influenced by what is inside of you. So what ends up happening is if you live in the world and your external reality determines how you're feeling and your feelings determine what you do, then that means you're an animal. And what ends up happening is like, you know, these, you know, there's a video game which, you know, I play when I'm sitting on the toilet, which is the bouncing balls, you know, the balls bounce. And you know, breaking all the bricks and stuff like that. And I realized that's what happens when you have an emotional response to your physical environment. And then you let that physical response tell you how you're feeling and what you're doing and who you are. So the only way to go beyond that is to go beyond the animal part of you and get to the spiritual part of you. Now, you can't get to the spiritual part of you if you have certain assumptions. The assumptions will literally, you know, like a wall, prevent the ball from bouncing beyond that. And those assumptions are any assumptions that have to do with victimization. Victimization is a definition. You could have two people in prison, in the same cell. One person would let that, where they are, would let that determine how they feel and determine their view of the future. And then you could have somebody who has an assumption that they can always overcome any challenge. And everything they do will be based on that. I mean, there are people that, you know, escape from inescapable prisons. I'm not sure what their actual mental mindset was, but they wouldn't give up. So you're not, if you're watching this, you're probably not in prison. Maybe you are. You're probably not in prison. You're probably not, you know, dying of a horrible disease. You're probably in your own home. You probably have food. You have all the things necessary for your physical survival, which is the only thing that should take you out of any kind of victimization feeling. Do I have a roof over my head? Yep. Do I have food? Yep. Do I have everything that I need for the next 24 hours? Yep. That should, in and of itself, put you in a state where then you can go into looking ahead towards your future in a positive way. So most people don't. So you have to be willing to completely change your assumptions about everything. And if you're not willing to do that, then I can't tell you what's going to happen in terms of your ascension. So the one thing that I want to tell you is the greatest tool in terms of ascension is not to wait around for it. Even though I've said I believe there's going to be an external event, I also know that I am responsible for my ascension. If I'm going to ascend, it means that I have to either overcome my base assumptions that keep me in a victim mentality, and or I have to replace those with a new assumption. So let's take that for example. So what happens with everybody, I don't care who you are, when you get here in a human body, the most important years are the first 3 years of your life. If in those first 3 years of your life you do not get sufficient training to teach you how to have positive assumptions about yourself and the universe, that is going to be your programming for the rest of your life, unless you spend the rest of your life determined to change that. And that's going to be true for almost all of us. Almost all of us did not get perfect first 3 years of our life. So that first 3 years of your life sets the base foundation for who you are. But up until you're 7 years old, by the way, I just found this out not too long ago. When you are between the ages of 1 and 7, you are actually in a state of being hypnotized. So you are continuously being programmed all the way for the first 7 years of your life. That first 7 years in your life is going to determine what happens after that. It's going to determine how, whether or not you're that guy in jail who says, you know what, there's a way out of everything, or if you're that guy who says, that's it, my life is over, and you just turn inside and you die. That's going to be completely based on those first 7 years. And you continue to hypnotize yourself every day. When you wake up in the morning, your assumptions kick in. My life is this, my life is that, the universe is this is the way life is, whatever your beliefs are, and these are happening on an unconscious level. They just flip on without you thinking about it. And then what ends up happening is you get stimulated by something. Either a thought, you can be stimulated internally, a thought will bounce into your mind, and that will stimulate a feeling. And then your base assumptions will tell you how to respond to that. You don't have control over any of this, by the way. This is happening completely without your control. It's in your nervous system. So there are people, and I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a large percentage of human beings that never get beyond their nervous system. They never get beyond that. It's like that ball bouncing back and forth. It never stops, just keeps reflecting back on itself. I'm responding to whatever stimulus, internal or external. But if your assumptions are so deeply laid that you are a deity in a physical body, that you have the ability to manufacture and create your reality, that the reality that you're in was something that you chose, and you chose it because you would have the power to overcome all of these challenges. If that is your base assumption, then whatever hits you isn't going to determine how you're feeling. I was just watching something about or something came up in my feed about heart disease. You know, and you guys know I'm 59 years old. I have friends who are on heart medication. I'm not on any medication. And that's my plan. My plan is to never have any medication whatsoever. And of course, the more you find out about medication, especially heart medication, you find out that it does far more damage. It ends up killing 90-something% of people who take it. But one way to get heart disease is to get into that space where the emotions keep bouncing back and forth inside of you, where they keep reaffirming themselves over and over again. Bear in mind that your nervous system, let's back up. Before you were incarnated, you were a supreme light being. You were an infinite deity. And you created this place that we call 3D planet Earth. And then you spent millions of years crafting the perfect avatar body for your soul. So you chose an animal. You chose to go take a primate. You said, primates on this planet, these are the best possibilities for creating an avatar. And so you created, helped with a bunch of other people, you helped evolve these very smart, very adaptable primates to the harsh conditions of planet Earth. And yet, that primate didn't become a human being until a soul was put into it. And the first soul that entered a primate body became the first human, whoever that was. And from then on, you now have the ability to be a spiritual being in a physical container. But you have these millions of years of this animal, which believes in the three-dimensional reality, the limitations, the dangers. And so you have all of these fear-based instincts, these survival-based instincts that are based on the assumption I'm only an animal. I'm not an infinite being. But if you are an infinite being and you are inside the body of this animal, then you can have your soul completely take over and take this physical body, this physical animal, into a much higher expression, which is what is coming. Because that's what the fifth dimension is all about, if you want to use that word. It's about us no longer living the lives of animals. Animals live completely on fear. So you have this body that is designed physically, and the nervous system is designed to respond, to protect itself from harm. Then what ends up happening as we human beings start to grow out of the need to protect ourselves, we no longer need to worry about where we're going to get our food. We no longer need to worry about where we're going to get our physical refuge, getting out of the cold. We no longer have to worry about clothes. We no longer have to worry about any of that. And that's basically what your body is doing. Your body is trying to tell you we have to get food, we have to get shelter, we have to be safe. But all of those things have been taken care of. But the body doesn't know that because it's an animal. And so what ends up happening is you have a thought which is based on money. Remember, I keep telling you money doesn't exist? Well, just the thought of money can put you in a state of fear. And then all of a sudden you have worry, which is a fear for the future. So now you're worried about the future, and you start to worry about that, and you're driving in your car, your heart rate goes up, the cortisol gets released in your body, the nervous system starts responding to a stress as though your physical life is in danger, but you're driving in a car. And all of that stuff then starts to bounce back on itself, and the next thing you know, you've got fibromyalgia, you've got heart disease, you've got whatever it is. You've got cancer, you've got irritable bowel syndrome, you've got all these crazy things, and all of them are a result of a fear-based defense mechanism that never gets satisfied. if you were a caveman running away from a giant grizzly bear, then once you got away from the giant grizzly bear, all of those defense mechanisms would shut down because you'd be safe. But if you're sitting in your car and you're having the same defense response to the idea of money or the idea of reputation, it's the same thing. People respond, the same way to feelings of I'm not a good enough person. The exact same way that people responded millions of years ago to a grizzly bear coming around the side of a mountain trying to kill you. Your body has the same response, but you don't have the ability to act on that, which is to run. If you're sitting in your car, you can't go anywhere. So you're running away from problems that only exist in your mind, in your brain. You're thinking about the past, you're thinking about the future, you're not in the present moment. And it all comes from the assumption that you're this tiny little being who was thrown onto a planet and you don't have any power, you don't have any, you don't have anything. You're just this tiny little being. God hates you. If you don't make God happy, you're going to get thrown into hell. And all of that is assumptions that were thrown into you from ages 1 to 7. So the only way out of that is to find ways to get the soul to once again be the king or the queen of your body. You can't do that just by deciding that. Unless, of course, you back it up with the appropriate actions. So you are going to have to learn how to meditate and get yourself into the quantum state. When you're in the quantum state, then you have access to things that are beyond the physical. And how you identify yourself is going to determine whether or not you're going to be able to do that. If you identify as all of those negative things, then you'll never be able to move beyond that. But if you want to move beyond that, you're going to have to move beyond everything you understand, which means you're going to have to live in the unknown. And the unknown is the place of power. And the unknown, if you're a human, will cause you fear in the beginning. In the beginning, the unknown will cause you fear. And if you respond to that fear based on your human reactions, you will get back into this place where the ball is bouncing back and forth, and you just keep reflecting back to yourself how much danger you're in, and you have no ability to solve that problem. So this is a long-winded way of helping you understand you have to drop the victim mentality. So I want you to make a list. I made a video yesterday about were the chakras implants, alien implants? And I said, normally, this has been a big thing. People say the chakras are alien implants. The assumption of that is that that's a bad thing because aliens are bad. Aliens are evil. Aliens are the same. Aliens are the new demons. What they would have called demons back in the Middle Ages, we just call them aliens. So it would have been the same as saying chakras are demon implants to control you so that the devil, it's the exact same, it's exactly the same as if, some middle-aged priest came out and said, chakras, those are the implants of Satan. And the demons put that in there so that that Satan can monitor you. And it's exactly the same belief. No difference. Just change the words around. So if you have that assumption, it means that you believe that you live in a universe that doesn't love you, because you live in a universe that allows beings like that to exist who are more powerful than you. This is an assumption. And you'd be surprised how many people would much rather live in that universe than the one that I'm presenting to you. Which is, once you get out of the third dimension, there are no demons. There are no evil beings. There's individuals out there. And, we could argue about whether or not they're perfect or not. But there isn't a being beyond the third dimension that doesn't have complete empathy for you, complete love for you, and doesn't see themselves in you. There is no being out there beyond the third dimension that you have to worry about. Zero. That is an assumption. You can choose to accept it or not. Now, I know from having that assumption and operating from that assumption, my life continues to get better all the time. I still have the exact same fear-based responses to reality that you do because of my programming. The first 7 years of my life, I didn't get all those good things that you're supposed to get. I didn't get any of them. So my nervous system and this animal that I'm living inside of wants to respond negatively just waking up in the morning. All I have to do is wake up in the morning and all of the negative thoughts start pouring in, because that's my programming. And all kinds of feelings come up from that. I get all kinds of uncomfortable feelings. And if I allowed those feelings to dictate my responses, I'd probably be dead. I'd certainly be dead. Absolutely, now that I think about it. So stop focusing on that. I'm not saying don't deal with it, but don't allow that to determine your actions. Having said that, if that is the case for you, you're going to have to start taking actions that are going to be completely contrary to all of your impulses. And you're going to have to be uncomfortable living in the unknown. Going to have to be comfortable with that. But once you start living in the unknown long enough, and once you start having positive reactions, then that same process happens where the positive feelings start bouncing back between your identity and your experience, and you start to identify more and more and more with those positive assumptions. So I know, as I always do, I'm all over the map, so forgive me. So let me go back to what I was saying in the beginning, which was nothing happens outside of you. Nothing. The ascension, solar flash, it's not something outside of you, even though it will be something outside of you. A lot of people don't know why they don't have success communicating with interdimensional meditation. So interdimensional meditation is the word I use for communicating with higher dimensional beings. By the way, higher dimensional beings doesn't just mean extraterrestrials. It also means deities, spirits, guides, even the most powerful of deities. For me, they're all that's what happens when I go into interdimensional meditation. I could be speaking to one or all of them. Well, here's the interesting thing. In interdimensional meditation, when these beings communicate with you, almost guaranteed what's going to happen is when you get a telepathic message from them, you will experience your own brain creating a thought, and it will feel like it is your own thought. You will feel as though it came from you. Same thing with if you get interdimensional energy. So for me, I get a lot of higher dimensional energy that it's literally sort of erupting from within my heart center. And what's interesting is that it will feel as though I've created the feeling. And that lasts for a split second, and then I realize this didn't come from me. So this is something you have to understand. And the lesson of that is that you did create it. So if you have the question, like if you get an interdimensional telepathic message, and your first thought is, did I just make that up? The answer to that question is yes. And also, it was something that came from another consciousness in another dimension. They are both true at the same time. What it means is that you must cooperate with the process. So if you're doing interdimensional meditation and you don't think that you're having these, when people say nothing happened, what's happening is that you are expecting it to come from outside of you. You are expecting those beings to live outside of you. They live inside of you, even though they're from another planet. Does that mess with your brain? It messes with my brain. So what I've learned to do is I know when I'm interacting with higher dimensional beings, I know right off the bat that the communication will always be self-empowering for me. If I'm listening to my own mind, it will be degrading me. It'll be telling me something negative. That's how I know it's my own mind. My own mind, my own body. This human animal has been programmed to devalue me 24/7. So all of those negative feelings, self-hatred, self-doubt, insecurity, all of that, that comes from me, from my programming. So one of the things I had to learn how to do if I wanted to keep a connection with a higher dimensional being, which lucky for me, there's usually an energetic component where I can feel energetically that I'm in communication with a higher dimensional being. I had to start from the assumption that that being is only going to tell me loving things. Things that are empowering to me. So I start from that. And when I start from that and I reach out and I say, is anybody there that wants to communicate? I will begin to say loving things to myself. And that I can feel increases the connection, and they can come in that space of self-love. And as long as I am engaged in that process of telling myself something wonderful about myself, they can come in and be a part of that and expand it, beyond something I'm used to. So if you're having trouble with interdimensional meditation, just do this. Go through the process that I teach you how to go through. You leave your body, you go outside of outside of Earth's atmosphere, and you say, are there any beings out there that want to communicate? Maybe you'll feel something, maybe you'll see something, maybe you'll get an intuition, maybe you won't. Then what I'd like for you to do is just to start, while you're outside Earth's atmosphere, start giving yourself loving thoughts. Start telling yourself, I love you more than anything. You're my favorite person in the universe. You're so amazing. You're so wonderful. You're so creative. When you start doing that, that will then create a portal for higher dimensional beings to communicate with you. Because remember, higher dimensional beings are incapable of saying anything negative. They're literally incapable of doing it. They can't do it. They cannot say anything negative to you. So if you're in doubt and you don't like yourself and you keep telling yourself this, I can't do this, this can't happen, then they can't get in. You've created a wall that they can't get past. But if you can start with the self-love, then you create something that they can be a part of. And then you are part of that process. You are participating in self-love. You have to come from that point. You can't be in a state of self-love if you have a victim mentality assumption. Again, chakras are bad. Chakras are an implant. And if you believe that, then you have to believe that there are evil beings in a higher dimension that have access to you. You not only believe that there are evil beings that have access to you, but you also believe that you live in a universe that will allow, without your permission, beings to implant you with something that they can then use to take advantage of you. Do you see all those assumptions have to exist? And what's frustrating to me is that a lot of people have spiritualized their victim mentality. So it's one thing to say, to have a victim mentality, feel that you're not good enough, nobody likes you, you don't deserve anything. But then when you start doing that on a spiritual basis, you then end up with this feedback loop where you will have these assumptions that are self-devaluing, believing that there are beings out there that want to deceive you, that want to feed off of you, that want to manipulate you, that want to lie to you, and that they have control over you and they have access to you. Right there, you're starting from a victim mentality. You also believe that the universe condones that. And that is a victim mentality. A victim mentality is any belief where the universe is condoning you being having things being done to you without your permission. I'm going to repeat that. A victim mentality is where you believe that any being has the right to have access to you, to do things to you without your permission. If you believe anything along those lines, that is a victim mentality, and you must get rid of that. So that means if you're in an abusive relationship where somebody is actually doing something to you against your will that is damaging to you, it's a very real thing, you can't respond from a victim mentality place. You have to go, you know what? This is only happening because I'm allowing it to happen. And if you really dig into it, it goes beyond that. It's not only that you're allowing it to happen, you actually sought it out. And then the question is, why would somebody, people ask this all the time, why would somebody choose to be born like that? It's a good question. What they're talking about other people because, you know, that's what they do. They're projecting and deflecting. They really want to know, why would I choose that for myself? And that is the question that only you can answer. So sometimes when people ask me that, why would somebody choose to be born, you know, without limbs in the third world country? And I'd say, what are you asking me for? Ask them. They're the ones that chose it. And again, if you live in a universe where you can be abused, it means that if you believe that there are false beings of light, aliens, parasitic beings that can get into your chakras and live off of your energy, if you believe in a universe where that is tolerated, then it means that you're screwed. It means that you will never escape that. Do you understand that? So there's only two choices. Either you have created everything in your life, even if you don't understand how, or you are a helpless victim. Those are the only two choices you have. I refuse to be a helpless victim. I refuse to do it. And it served me very well. That warrior mindset of I refuse to be miserable. I refuse to be unhappy. I refuse to be sick. I refuse to get old. I refuse it. Has served me very well. But it also means that I'm willing to take full responsibility. In terms of, again, I want to tell you how demon possession works. Again, 98% of people who think that they're demon possessed aren't. They're actually just somaticizing and externalizing their own victim mentality so that they can stay justified in it. You know, people who spiritualize it and think that they're spiritual because they believe in reptilians and false beings of light and parasitic demons that fly around the astral realm looking to, you know, feed off of your energy. They spiritualize it, which creates a feedback loop where on the one hand they tell themselves they're spiritual and good, and yes, we have to be careful of these demons, we have to be careful of the bad aliens. Oh, but I'm spiritual. That's like, you know, Christianity. People spiritualize their self-hatred. They project it onto Jehovah. They project their codependence onto Jesus. And they spiritualize their trauma and their decision to stay in the trauma, because if they believe if they stay there, like Christianity, if you carry your cross, if you humiliate yourself, you know, like people do around the world, they crawl onto their knees are bloody, thinking that somehow that's going to get God's love and approval. You're doing it for, again, something outside of you. What did I say in the beginning? Everything is inside of you, including love. Including God's love is inside of you, not outside of you. So when the solar flash comes, when the ascension event comes, and we experience it as something outside of ourselves, it's going to be the same kind of dynamic as we have when we communicate in the third dimension with higher dimensional beings. It starts with participating in our own self-love, participating in our own ascension. That participation within our own ascension will manifest an external event. The external event will be the manifestation of the collective unconscious participation in their own self-healing, their own self-love, their own self-deification. Because the one thing I've seen with these beings is that they talk to me as though I'm a deity, and I can only imagine they talk similarly to you. Maybe they don't call you a deity, maybe they call you a master healer, maybe they call you the most, you created the universe, you're the most loving being. I don't know how they interact with you, but you are the one that initiated that conversation. How you truly see yourself at your core essence, which is not your animal self, but your spirit self. So I want you to be honest with yourself, and if you're on my channel, I want you to come here to learn. I'm not sitting at a bar having drinks with you and your opinion and my opinion, and that's not what happens here. This is a classroom. If you don't need education, trust me, I don't need to be your teacher. You can go be your own teacher or find somebody else. But if you're coming to this channel, you're going to get the most out of it if you treat it like this is your classroom. And in this classroom, I have tools for you to use. There are books which you can read, which will help you to study and learn these assumptions. These videos are here just to get you to do the work. The videos here are not the end of it. I'm just here to turn lights on inside of you so that you'll then go and make use of the tools that I have. There are free tools here. There's thousands and thousands of videos. There are the books, which are incredibly inexpensive. And there are the free practices, the Qigong practices, the guided meditations, the rituals. But you have to go and learn how to search within the channel. You got to treat it like a library. Go in there and look for the tools. I wish I had something like this. And that's why I've created it this way, because I was relentless I was a voracious studier and researcher. And I didn't just want ideas, I was only interested in things that I could physically put into practice. And everything I teach you is something that you physically do. When I talk to you about doing interdimensional meditation and I tell you that these beings blah blah blah, I'm not a channeler. That's the difference between me and I keep saying I'm not a channeler. A channeler is somebody who says, just take what I say at face value. I am the conduit for the being, and now I'm going to go put myself in a trance, and I'll either talk in a funny voice or I won't. And then you have to listen to everything I say, and it's coming from me, not from you. I tell you about it and I go, and here's how I did it, now you go do it. I'm much more interested in you proving it to yourself than you believing anything I say. All right, so the best way to get through this ascension process, the thing that we need to learn is that the ascension is something that comes from within you. If you are operating from a victim mentality, you cannot create your ascension. So you must be willing to drop anything that has anything to do with some being or some power being stronger than you. Because if that's not true, if it's not coming from some other being or something outside of you, it means you're doing it to yourself. You're doing it to yourself because you were trained to do that. You chose to take on that training. You chose to allow yourself to be hypnotized for first 7 years of your life because you believed that's what you needed to survive. Now you're going to have to untrain yourself. That's only going to come through adopting assumptions completely opposite from a victim mentality, and then backing up those assumptions with actions, meditation, energy work, and going after the things that you love. You have to be doing that. You have to do it. The actions have to go along with the thinking, otherwise nothing happens. Your nervous system won't change, your body won't change, and then you won't be able to access your pineal gland, which allows you to create. One of these days I'll have to talk about that. All right, so I'm done babbling. If you have questions, please write the word question in all caps. The word question in all caps, and then write your question. A question is, you think I have the answer to something that you want to know about. A question isn't, what are your thoughts on? That's not a question. Have you heard about what so-and-so says? That's not a question. Question is, you want to know something you think I have the answer to that you don't. And besides a question, I want your feelings. A feeling is not an opinion. A feeling is an emotion. I want to hear you write your emotions. And the reason for that is when you are in a state of honest questioning and you are in a state of having a feeling, you are in the state of being where you can go into the unknown. If you have an opinion, you're already closed down. So having an open mind with a question and being vulnerable with your feelings is what allows higher dimensional beings to come in and help you completely change yourself. All right, let's take a look here. Grimmer, question. I have been working with the Thunder Wheel for years now. I would like to know your thoughts on if Frigga, Jord, and Frau Hole are the same earth goddess. So Grimmer, don't take this personally, but you've devastated me. My feelings are very hurt. I'm outrageously offended. Can you guess why? I've written about this. I've written books. If you know how to find my books, I have books on the Thunder Wheel, on Thunder Shamanism, and I tell you exactly who those goddesses are. I tell you what the linguistic roots of them are, and where you can find them both in the Norse and the Vedic tradition. So what that tells me is that either you haven't read my books, or if you have, you didn't pay attention or you don't remember. So instead of me taking hours going through all of the linguistic roots of those words, why don't you put the time and effort into searching my channel for Thunder Wheel, Thunder Shamanism, and read the books and find out for yourself. Do the work, guys. I'm not doing this just to be an a-hole. When you really actually go and do the work and read the books and find the stuff and search my channel, it does things to you. You're actively engaged in taking responsibility for your reality. Don't just expect me to spoon feed you all that. But again, I've talked about all those things. I tell you what the root of Frigga is, tell you what the root of Jord is. We've talked about Hole. And you can probably guess they've got different names. It means there's different linguistic roots to each one of those names. And each one of them can be found in the Vedic tradition as well. Agent of the universe, honest feeling. All the things you have mentioned stimulates anger, fear, and anxiety in me. So that's your defense mechanism response. And you can decide whether or not that's going to control you. So it is possible to have a negative feeling, to be fully conscious of that feeling. In other words, not try and get rid of the uncomfortable feeling and take a completely different action. So you're learning how to do that. So thank you for sharing that feeling. So text as, this isn't how it works. I'm not here to do that. If you have a question, write the word question. If you have a feeling, write the word feeling. Yeah, so the one thing I'll say to you is that go get a therapist. That's what therapists are for. You are in a toxic, codependent relationship that you have chosen. You've sought this out. You're not a victim. You sought this out. So just accept that you've sought out this destructive relationship, and now you're going to go and take a look at yourself. Having me save you or somebody else save you means that you don't understand and it's okay, you haven't got there yet, but you're still wrapped up in this belief that some narcissist has the ability to make you do anything. And nobody's forcing you to be in that relationship. You chose to be there. You can stay or leave. If you can't leave, then that's where you go to Codependence Anonymous, CODA.org. You work all 12 steps with a sponsor. Go and find a therapist. But coming on here and whining and complaining about the choices you've made, you're not going to get a very positive response from me. I'm sorry you're going through that. But I've never functioned well with people who complain but aren't willing to do something to change it. So I've given you the tools. Go to Codependence Anonymous, get a sponsor, work all 12 steps, and or find yourself a therapist and see what you can do to get yourself out of that destructive relationship. Agent of the Universe question, do you believe the parents are held responsible for the assumptions they hypnotize in their offspring? Interesting, that's the first thing that you come up with. And I've spent whatever it is, 40 minutes talking to you about being completely responsible for whatever. And now you want me to help you blame your parents. You're not getting it. You're not listening. Your first reaction was to go and blame your parents for what they did to you. And you didn't hear what I said. You chose to incarnate in this life. You chose your parents. And you chose your parents because you knew before you incarnated that you could find the tools to overcome that. Not, are your parents going to be punished for what they did? Because I got to tell you, Agent of the Universe, I know a little bit about you. If your parents are going to get punished for what they did, what about all the things you've done? You've let us know you've done some pretty hurtful things to people. So what is it? You get a pass, but your parents don't? If you want a pass for all the destructive, hurtful things you've done to yourself and to others, then you might as well give them a pass as well. Having said that, it's okay to be angry, but this is something you need to work through with your sponsor. And I believe everybody could work the steps. Even Agent of the Universe, you could function from working the 12 steps of Coda. All right, what else? TT question, do higher dimensional beings have choice and free will? It's a strange question to ask. Why wouldn't they? Why would you think that they don't? And then, what is the assumption in that? I've seen your questions before. TT, are you working any of the tools that I give? Are you somebody who just comes on and watches the videos? Do you do on a regular daily basis any of the meditations or any of the energy work? Are you subscribed to the 90-day challenge? Because that question assumes that they're different than you. But what did I say in the beginning? I said everything comes from within you. So if you have choice and free will, and these higher dimensional beings are coming from inside of you, and you're coming from inside of them, what does that tell you? And it also tells me that there's a part of you that's still holding on to the idea that they, somebody could manipulate your question. I don't know if this is going on in your mind, but somebody could manipulate the question into, well, if they have free will, then they can choose to be mean. Therefore, I'm now justified in saying that evil higher dimensional beings can hurt me. This is a theme with you, if I'm remembering you correctly. This is a theme of yours, and this is why I'm constantly asking you, are you doing the meditations? Or are you just one of those people that comes on and asks questions but doesn't do the work? So you feel free to answer me about either of those questions. Agent of the Universe, stop arguing with me. I've given you my answer. I am not going to co-sign your victim mentality. If you don't like what I said, plenty of places for you to go, but I am not going to co-sign that, and arguing with me about it isn't going to help you, so I'm going to get rid of that comment. And it's time for you to grow up, okay? So growing up means that you take full responsibility. Yep, you got here from 0 to 7 because you chose to come here. So stop it. Really annoying. Anyway, let's see what else. Zerlath Immortal, honest feeling. I was more hurt by betrayal of people I thought liked me than those who didn't like me up front. Okay, I understand that feeling. Rodena Washburn question. Shouldn't we be using vril life for, what is that? I mean, if you're going to write a question, at least make sure you spell the words. I don't know what any of those words mean. Why don't you try again? Okay, life force. Using vril, what is vril? I don't know anything about what you've just written, so I can't answer a question I don't understand. What else? All right. Tex asks, if you don't like my response, there's plenty of places to go. You're now going to fight with me and tell me that I said something I didn't. And you're taking what I say as a personal attack. And if you don't like what I teach, there's the door. Don't let it hit your rear end on the way out. This is a place for adults. We have to grow up here. So that means, you know, if I tell you something, it's coming from a place of wanting to help you. If you listen to it, take it to heart and act on it, it will help you. You argue with me, then that means that I don't have the ability to help you, which means that you're wasting your time by even being here. So don't waste your time. If you need to argue with me, I'm the wrong teacher for you. Go enjoy your life. I'm not going to argue with you. What else? Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling. I've been doing a lot of work for the past few years, and I'm angry that nothing's changing in my living situation. I'm angry and grieving that I chose my life, abuse, neglect. Well, I know a little bit about you, Vincent, and I don't think that's completely accurate in terms of nothing's changing in your living situation. I know some things are the same, but one way to overcome that is to do what I just did, which is to look at the things, you know, take a look at where you were 5 years ago and look at where you are now. You have to learn to appreciate what you have. That feeling that you have of wanting to say that general blanket statement that nothing has changed, that's an old conditioned response. And it's okay that you have that feeling, but the way to shift is make consistent, disciplined, repeated efforts to respond differently to those internal responses. Having said that, I understand your feeling. All right. Nothing else? I don't see any other questions. So it's really important that, you know, look, we're in the prisons of our own creation. And there is, you know, we have to be willing to move beyond our, our programming. But we have to also be willing to look at, ways that we choose to stay in it. And that's the tough part. The belief that your actions will keep you alive, that's what keeps you there. It's very hard to move past that. But you can choose, there is a way out. I talked about it earlier. It's choosing to decide to love yourself. Choosing to decide to love yourself and to believe in yourself. Choosing to decide to believe that the universe loves you. And, unfortunately, some of this is, there are people coming here. I'm not going to name names, but they're, new and old people who come here who are extremely damaged, extremely traumatized. I am also. And it's frustrating because trauma is a very low-level victim mentality that is highly charged, and it's very difficult to get out of. And trauma, traumatized people want to defend their trauma-based reaction. I mean, I just told somebody, I don't want to listen to that. Go leave the relationship. Here are the tools. The person didn't say, oh, thank you for that tool. I can go to CODA, work the 12 steps. and I'll be able to leave. Oh, I can go see a therapist. Thank you for the tools. That wasn't the response. The response was to argue with me and to stay justified and make, now I'm the bad guy. Now I'm another abuser telling them that they're wrong. That is a distorted way of thinking, and it's a habit. It's a way of responding to external stimuli. It means that people, traumatized people, respond negatively to anything. You treat them badly, they take that on, and they think everything's against them. You treat them well, they take that on, turn it around into some kind of a, somebody's doing me wrong and beating me up. I give you the tools to open the door and you get mad at me. Now, this is one of the, again, the interesting thing. People will say, how would anybody choose to be here? And I say, I just told you that you chose to come here, which means that you have the ability to get yourself out of this. And instead of asking the question of, oh, well, what is it that I can do to get myself out of this? Instead, you want to argue with me about whether or not you chose to come here. See what I mean? It's just a self-reflecting thing. It's very hard to get out of. But that's the only way that we can get access to our pineal gland. Our pineal gland is the magic tool that will pull us out of 3D and give us the ability to create new realities. You cannot stimulate your pineal gland if you have a victim mentality. A victim mentality is an old response that you continue to keep choosing to do, even though it doesn't feel that way. Ella Biza, that's not a question. A question is, you're asking me something that you think I know that you don't. What you've done is you've written a statement. Sounds like that is your belief. You say nothing happens without us because we're all source and we're all one, or is it because we are all, oh, there is a question there. Or is it all because we're kind of wearing our own virtual reality glasses and playing our own? Because those are really two competing statements. You're trying to find a statement that makes it work for you. And I don't want to boil it down to something superficial and easy. Accept the assumption that everything comes from you, that you choose everything. Now you can spend the rest of your life trying to figure out exactly why that is. Agent of the Universe question, should I go to CODA even if I might not have codependency or different issues? Anybody should work the steps, I think, that wants to. I'm not telling you what to do. I know what your issue is. And I know that you're in therapy, which is helpful for you. But the 12 steps will help anybody. It's the most potent way to change your brain structure. And it really, what it is the stuff I'm talking about is stuff that's, we've got people of serious trauma. If you're stuck in an abusive narcissistic relationship, you're at a base level trauma. You are definitely responding from infantile traumatic issues in your adult life. And that's why I said it's very self-preserved, a lot of defense mechanisms. It's very difficult to get past that. No matter what I say, it just bounces off. So the 12 steps are really for breaking apart that trauma so that you can then take responsibility. And then the stuff that I want to talk about, like the stuff that Joe Dispenza talks about and people that I respect, they're talking at a level above that. Because usually people at that level of trauma, they won't even hear what he's saying. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make a blanket statement. That's just my experience. And so the 12 steps are easily the best way to get out of that trauma loop response. But unfortunately, people don't do anything unless they absolutely have to. That's why people like drug addicts, alcoholics, those are the people that work the 12 steps, because if they don't, they're going to end up dead in a week. But people who are, severely codependent, they're not necessarily going to die tomorrow or the next day. They might end up killing themselves of cancer in 20 years. But so when you tell them to take full responsibility and really look at themselves, especially the fourth step, which is to look at your resentments, most people just don't have the willingness to do that. And that's the frustrating part. I got to be honest with you. The frustrating part is that the majority of people that I hear talking, not, you agent of the universe or people that have been following me for a while, but especially new people come in, what I hear is, my first thought is, this doesn't sound like somebody that's going to get it, because they're not willing to drop their victim mentality. People who come onto the channel and don't do the work, who only listen to me talk, they're the first person to ask a question. They're always there when I'm doing a live stream, but they're not subscribed to, the 90-day challenge. They're not doing any of the free practices. It's kind of a waste of time. I mean, it's almost a waste of time to come here, because you've got to do the work. You've got to drop the victim mentality. If you're coming onto my channel because you've been flying around in the New Age spiritual thing and you want to come onto another New Age spiritual channel, we're both going to sort of, feed each other with our spiritualness, it's probably not going to happen here. I'm probably going to end up disagreeing with you about something, and if that's important to you, you're either going to leave or be willing to learn something beyond that, unless you don't think I have something of value, in which case you can go somewhere else. But this is, in order for this ascension to happen, we've got to change ourselves. We have to be willing to change ourselves, and that starts with dropping the victim mentality, taking full responsibility. Okay, what else? Nothing else? So just what I said, Radana, I mean, it's not a question, but you said, can't wait to remove my virtual headset. I want to go home authentically. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying that's kind of my point. You're already here, right now. You are already in the fifth dimension. If you change your attitude, if you change your actions, if you take more responsibility. It's not gonna, you don't have, if you're gonna remove your virtual headset, then do it. Why do you have to wait? Do it now. Then the question should be, how do I do that? How do I? I mean, I've been lucky enough to have been given the fifth dimension experience a couple of times. And what I learned both times is that I had control over what was happening to me. That in that fifth dimension experience, I had the ability to intensify it or decrease it based on what I focused on. So that belief that it's something coming, it's something outside of you. Exactly what I'm trying to break. And the question should be, how do I do this right now? Give me the tools. Tell me what to do. And this is what I do every day. I give you the tools and tell you what to do. All right. Anything else? I don't see any other questions. All right. That's it, guys. Thanks so much for showing up. As always, if I've done or said anything that's been hurtful or offensive, know that it's just me doing my best. I'm trying to help. We got a limited amount of time, and things are changing very rapidly. And so, we don't have time to coddle each other. It's time to move. It's time to do the work. If you don't know what to do, great. You've landed on the perfect channel. You go to the playlists, and I've got the Hool Breath, Awakening the Immortals. We've got the Heaven Earth meditation. Go do those every day. Do one of those things every single day. That's not enough? No problem. Get on the internet, find a 12-step group that works for you. Codependence Anonymous, Adult Children of Alcoholics, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Love Addicts Anonymous. Get into the 12 steps, find a sponsor, work the 12 steps. Be doing both of those at the same time. You want tools? I'm giving them to you. If you leave this video thinking to yourself, I want what he's talking about, and you're not willing to do any of the work, it's 100% on you. If you're here because you're ready to do whatever the hell it takes, I am giving you the tools. You want the really good stuff? Go up here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. That's not good enough? Go and subscribe to the 6-month Awakening Apprenticeship course. That's not enough? go subscribe to the apprenticeship where we work together, depending on you, once a week, once a month, depending on your subscription. You putting the time and effort to do the work is what is going to change you, not watching YouTube videos. Okay? All right, let's see. El Abiza, feeling the idea that I chose my life and all the hardships I knew I would come with it makes me feel empowered and brave. Good for you. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, that's it for me, guys. I'm all done. I will see you all probably tomorrow or the next day. Take care.